Welcome to VSOW, your dedicated space for unraveling the profound ideas that shape our world.
It's great to be diving in again.
Today, we're embarking on a fascinating intellectual journey. We're delving into a tension that has, well, echoed through human thought for millennia. It's this ancient observation that there is nothing new under the sun, pitted against the distinctly modern and often very optimistic concept of progress.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental query, really, about the whole trajectory of human existence. Are we repeating cycles or are we actually moving forward?
Exactly. It challenges our assumptions about where we've come from and, where we might be headed.
Indeed, it's a captivating philosophical crossroads. You've got this perspective suggesting an eternal loop, a kind of cosmic déjà vu almost.
History repeating itself.
And then on the other hand, this triumphant narrative of an unwavering march forward, an ascent to, well, ever greater heights of human achievement.
So to navigate this intricate landscape, we've gathered some compelling sources today.
We have. Each one offers a unique lens on this profound debate.
That's right. Our foundational text comes directly from the Bible, specifically Ecclesiastes 1.9 from the New International Version. It's a verse many of you have probably encountered.
A very famous one.
Then, to really examine the modern idea of progress, we'll immerse ourselves in a truly thought-provoking philosophical essay. It's called The Idea of Progress, Reality or Myth by Theodore Abel.
A challenging piece, definitely.
And to offer a fresh, maybe nuanced perspective on our biblical starting point, we'll consult a contemporary interpretation. This comes from what the Bible probably didn't mean Ecclesiastes 1.9 by the scholars at Mayer I, considering the Bible.
So our mission today is, well, it's a deep dive, isn't it? We want to unpack these powerful ideas, explore their layers of meaning, their historical and philosophical nuances.
And discover what these contrasting perspectives tell us, not just about the past, but about our present condition and maybe the possibilities we envision or perhaps limit for our future.
Exactly. Are we perpetually revisiting old ground, or is there a genuine, discernible upward trajectory to the human story? That's the core question.
Okay, let's unpack this. Many of us have heard the phrase, what has been will be again, what has been done will be done again, there is nothing new under the sun. It often sounds rather, well, fatalistic, doesn't it? Or maybe resigned.
It really does. It's a saying that's deeply woven into our daily conversations. You hear it when people observe patterns repeating, whether in personal life or, broader society.
It carries this weight of inevitability, almost like a sigh of collective human experience.
Absolutely. And this verse, Ecclesiastes 1.9, it comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, often attributed to King Solomon. We're looking at the New International Version, the NIV.
Right.
And it's worth noting Ecclesiastes, sometimes called the Preacher or Koheleth, it stands a bit apart in the Bible. It's really a profound work of wisdom literature.
More philosophical, less narrative.
Precisely. A philosophical exploration of life's meaning, or perhaps its perceived lack thereof. The preacher is like a meticulous observer, detailing human efforts under a specific lens. And the source we looked at actually provides cross-references, like to Ecclesiastes 2.12 and 3.15. These really show how this theme of repetition, maybe even futility, echoes throughout Solomon's reflections.
Can you give us a sense of those other verses?
Sure. In Ecclesiastes 2.1, he asks, essentially, what can the person who follows the king do? Only what's already been done. It reinforces that sense of limitation. And in 3.15, he states, whatever has already been, and what is to be has already been. It's this deep sense of, well, cosmic déjà vu again. It's not just a fleeting thought for him. It's the lens through which he examines everything.
A core observation about the cyclical nature of things on Earth.
Exactly. Within that specific realm he's observing.
So in our modern context, how do people typically interpret and use this phrase today? What's the common understanding?
Well, the prevalent modern interpretation, I'd say it's almost universally used to express the sheer monotony, the tedium of life.
Like the daily grind.
Exactly. The constant cycle of waking, sleeping, working, that feeling that all our experiences are just variations on themes already played out, like we've seen it all before.
So when people use it, they're describing life as boring, tedious.
Yes, tedious, boring, lacking variety, numbing, Ponderous, drab, wearisome, all those kinds of words. It's rarely said with excitement. It's almost always with a sigh or a shrug like, here we go again.
I can definitely relate to that feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
Can you give us some more concrete, everyday examples? Where might we hear this used today?
Oh, sure. Think about politics. A new election cycle starts, and suddenly the same debates pop up, old grievances resurface, the arguments sound awfully familiar, maybe just with new faces.
Like, someone might throw their hands up and say,
Nothing new under the sun in politics, same old song and dance. Or think about fashion trends. Bell-bottoms, shoulder pads. They come back around, don't they?
definitely. My kids are wearing things I swore off decades ago.
See? Someone looking at a runway show, or even just shopping, might say, didn't we do this already? Nothing new under the sun.
Okay, fashion, politics, what else?
Well, even sometimes with technology. New gadgets come out, but sometimes they feel like just slightly better versions of what we already had, not truly revolutionary.
Incremental improvements, not breakthroughs.
Exactly. And even just in daily routines, the endless chores, the predictable work week, administrative tasks, that phrase just slips in. It captures that sense that despite superficial changes, the core human experiences, the struggles, the patterns, they're fundamentally repetitive.
Leading to that feeling that humanity is just kind of stuck in a loop.
That's a good way to put it. Stuck in a loop.
That sense of weariness, yeah, it really resonates with the modern use. But I wonder, is there ever a scenario where this phrase could be seen, maybe, in a positive light, or as a source of comfort?
That's an interesting angle.
Like, could it imply some kind of foundational stability? Maybe that human nature, for all its flaws, remains constant, offering a familiar landscape even when things change.
That's a thoughtful question. And while, yes, the dominant modern usage leans pessimistic, your point about stability is insightful. In some contexts, acknowledging nothing new under the sun could offer a strange sort of comfort.
How so?
It could suggest that whatever we're facing, others have faced it before, and humanity has endured. It provides a sense of continuity, a shared experience across generations. That might be reassuring in our fast-paced world.
So it connects us to the past, in a way.
Right. It reminds us that fundamental human emotions, relationships, challenges, they persist. It gives a relatable framework. But even viewed that way, it still emphasizes a lack of true novelty, doesn't it? A lack of fundamental advancement.
True. It still points to repetition.
Which is the core of Solomon's observation and the modern interpretation. It just maybe reframes the emotional response to that repetition sometimes. But mostly, this common usage reflects weariness, resignation, even cynicism about real change or innovation.
Implying we're stuck in that loop, that progress is an illusion.
Exactly. And that can lead to a profound feeling of hopelessness if you believe this earthly cycle is all there is. Solomon himself called this repetition wearisome.
But, as you hinted, maybe the modern interpretation is missing something crucial.
That's where it gets really interesting. Our sources suggest that this common understanding, this feeling of universal futility, might actually miss a crucial layer of meaning in Solomon's original words.
Okay.
It's like we've been focusing on just part of the sentence, missing the implications of a specific restrictive phrase he uses constantly.
A restrictive phrase. Which one?
Under the sun. The insight is that Solomon's lament isn't universal. It's precisely framed. It applies only to things under the sun.
Which implies?
It implies a whole realm of meaning might exist beyond the mundane under the sun. That completely flips the script.
Wow, okay. So this, considering the Bible source digs into this, what does it say is the key to understanding Ecclesiastes 1.9 properly?
It does an excellent job. It emphasizes the critical importance of that phrase, under the sun. It's not just poetry, it acts as a key restriction. It defines the specific arena where Solomon experienced futility and vanity.
It sets the boundaries for his observations.
Precisely. It frames the entire scope.
Yeah.
Without understanding this boundary, we really misinterpret his whole message.
So it's not a blanket statement about all existence, just about life within this specific earthly boundary. Can you give us some more examples from the text itself where he uses the phrase to draw that line?
Absolutely. The source quotes several. A key one is Ecclesiastes 1.3, where Solomon asks, "What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun?" See, not all toil everywhere, but specifically human effort in this realm.
Right, the qualifier's right there.
And even more emphatically, in 1.12, "I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind."
Again, explicitly limited.
Exactly. And the source notes this phrase appears over 25 times in Ecclesiastes. It's constant. He consistently connects nothing new, futility, vanity, only with life and toil under the sun.
Like a scientist defining the scope of an experiment.
That's a great analogy. He's specifying the parameters. This consistent usage makes it undeniable that the phrase is a deliberate restrictive qualifier.
Okay, that is a significant distinction. It changes his lament from maybe despair about everything into a specific critique of existence confined to the earthly sphere. So, if under the sun is the realm of futility, what does this imply about what lies beyond the sun?
This is the crucial, often missed exception. By consistently limiting his observations of vanity to life under the sun, Solomon strongly implies that beyond the sun there is not this vanity, tedium, or repetition.
So there's hope for novelty and purpose somewhere else.
Exactly. This subtle but critical distinction offers a profound sense of hope, the possibility of true change, genuine novelty, and enduring purpose. It suggests an arena of existence where meaning isn't futile.
But modern culture often misses this.
It often overlooks or ignores this crucial exception, doesn't it? We tend to assume, sometimes subconsciously, that life under the sun is all there is, that there's no beyond to even consider.
And that leads to hopelessness if this life feels repetitive and meaningless.
Precisely. We interpret Solomon's words as a complete picture of reality instead of a picture of reality within a specifically defined, limited framework.
That's powerful. It really reframes Ecclesiastes. So if recognizing this distinction is key, what does the considering the Bible source suggest for finding meaning and escaping this cycle once we see that beyond the sun possibility?
Well, the source presents a really compelling spiritual implication. It states it quite directly, almost like building a bridge. The one above the sun has come down below the sun to provide a connection to life beyond the sun.
Okay, so a divine intervention.
Yes, a deliberate act to establish a link, a connection between the repetitive, sometimes futile existence under the sun and the purposeful, meaningful, genuinely new existence beyond the sun.
And what does that mean for the listener, for us living our daily lives?
It suggests a transformation. What might otherwise feel like mere tedious repetition can be infused with purpose and meaning. It can be guided by a strength beyond our own, aimed at a meaningful, eternal goal.
So it's a counter-narrative to just endless cycles.
A profound counter-narrative. It suggests that even within the mundane cycles, you can find a connection to something truly new and eternally significant. It injects meaning into everyday actions and choices.
So it encourages seeking purpose beyond the earthly cycle rather than resigning to nothing new.
Exactly. Don't just accept the nothing new on its surface. Look for that deeper, purposeful connection that transcends it.
Okay, so if ancient wisdom, at least viewed this way, suggests a repetitive cycle on Earth, but with this potential escape or meaning beyond it, how did we, especially in the West, arrive at this incredibly powerful modern idea of progress?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It feels like a complete philosophical pivot,
Yeah.
a radical departure from that cyclical view, almost declaring that everything is new and always improving.
It absolutely is a pivot, a dramatic one. And that's precisely the challenge Theodore Abel takes on in his essay, The Idea of Progress, Reality, or Myth.
He questions the whole concept.
Directly. He asks whether progress, as we understand it, is a verifiable fact, an objective observation, or maybe just an illusion, a powerful cultural story we tell ourselves.
It forces us to examine our basic assumptions about human development.
It really is.
Before we get into his critique, how does Abel actually define this idea of progress that feels so ingrained in our modern thinking?
Well, Abel defines the theory of progress as this deeply held belief that the human condition, both materially and, crucially, spiritually, is consistently improving over time.
Improving how?
On an ascending scale, not just isolated fixes, but an overall fundamental upward trajectory for human existence.
So always getting better.
He adds a caveat. This advancement is understood to happen on the whole and in the long run. He acknowledges there might be occasional tragic reversals, setbacks, periods of decline.
Okay, so not a perfectly smooth lineup, but the overall trend is improvement.
That's the core belief, a conviction that humanity is inherently moving towards a better state.
That sounds, pretty familiar today. But how does this idea compare to earlier pre-modern views? Was this forward-looking optimism always around?
Not at all. This is where Abel's historical context is so illuminating. It highlights a radical shift.
Okay.
In antiquity, for instance, many cultures believed in a golden age, a mythical past of perfection, harmony, abundance. Think Hesiod.
Right, an ideal beginning.
And the prevailing belief was that humanity had been steadily declining ever since. moving away from that perfection through silver, bronze, iron ages, slipping downward.
So the opposite of progress.
Essentially, yes. Now, Plato introduced a more hopeful but still fundamentally cyclical idea. He proposed a vast 25,000-year cycle where mankind would eventually return to a golden age. Ah, so improvement was possible.
But only to start the identical process all over again. So yes, a glimmer of future betterment, but ultimately trapped in an endless loop. Abel points out, if Plato was right, 25,000 years from now, we'd be doing exactly this again. No net progress.
Wow. Decline or an endless loop. What about the Middle Ages? Did things look more optimistic then regarding earthly improvement?
Not really, no. During the Middle Ages, influenced heavily by figures like St. Augustine, the focus wasn't on earthly improvement in our modern sense. Earth was seen mostly as a vale of tears.
A testing ground.
Exactly, a temporary testing ground for the soul. The real good life, the ultimate flourishing, was only achievable in the spiritual city of God after death.
Contingent on how you lived through earthly trials.
Right, so improvement was a personal spiritual journey beyond this life, not a collective material societal progression on earth. History was more about a path to divine judgment or redemption than a story of earthly progress. It's a truly stark contrast. These pre-modern views, pessimistic decline, endless cycles, or focus solely on the afterlife, they just don't embrace our modern idea of continuous collective earthly improvement.
Exactly. Abel highlights this profound difference. The theory of progress, as we know it, with its optimism about human potential and societal betterment, it didn't really enter human thought in a big way until modern times.
When did it become dominant?
Abel pinpoints the beginning of the 18th century among social philosophers, and then it gradually became generally accepted in Western civilization. This makes the concept of progress a relatively new invention in the grand sweep of human history.
Which is why Abel feels the need to ask if it's reality or myth, because it hasn't always been the default assumption.
Precisely. It's a fairly recent experiment in human thought.
It's fascinating how our collective understanding of destiny can shift so dramatically, from decline or stasis to this widespread belief in continuous improvement in just a few centuries. What happened? What were the catalysts that changed minds so profoundly?
That's a critical historical moment, and Abel's essay details the convergence of several powerful factors around the 18th century, the Enlightenment era.
Okay, what factors?
The idea of progress coincided remarkably with, first, what he calls the remarkable blossoming of science after Galileo. This radically changed how we understood and could control the natural world.
Science takes off.
Right. Then, simultaneously, you have the transformative Industrial Revolution reshaping economies and societies, leading to unprecedented material advancements, at least for some.
Technology transforms life.
And alongside these, you have successful movements for political and social emancipation, gaining ground, advocating for human rights, individual liberties, challenging old hierarchies.
Society itself starts changing.
Exactly. A perfect storm, as you said earlier, scientific discovery, technological innovation, and social upheaval.
So how did this perfect storm impact the human psyche? How did it directly fuel this new narrative of progress?
Well, these achievements, happening relatively quickly one after another, they ignited incredibly high expectations and almost boundless optimism.
Because people could see change happening.
Yes. The scientific revolution showed the universe had discoverable laws. Human reason could unlock secrets and master nature. The Industrial Revolution offered tangible proof that ingenuity could overcome scarcity and drudgery.
And the political changes.
They fostered a belief in humanity's capacity to build more just, more equitable societies. This whole combination imbued people with supreme confidence in their own reason. They felt like master builders of their own destiny.
So where past generations might have just dreamed of a better life.
Now, people became convinced that life not only could but would steadily improve. It was this potent mix of tangible successes and exuberant optimism that really cemented the idea of progress.
It created this powerful narrative of human agency, an upward trajectory.
Very compelling narrative.
But Abel also talks about criticisms, right? That maybe progress is more than just a theory. Maybe it functions like an ideology.
Yeah.
What's the argument there?
Indeed. That comparison to a new religion is quite fitting, and it's central to the critique. Critics observe that the huge confidence from science and technology also led to a rapid secularization of people's outlook.
Moving away from traditional faith.
Yes, emancipation from reliance on divine help. from faith in providence. And the argument goes, recognizing that humans need some belief in a meaningful existence, especially as traditional religious frameworks faded.
They needed a substitute.
Exactly. Man adopted the idea of progress as a compelling new creed, a substitute faith. So the critics claim progress isn't based on a careful, objective look at the probabilities, but is actually a wishful projection, an ideology.
A comforting story to fill a psychological need for meaning and direction.
That's the essence of the critique. It became a new kind of faith, providing purpose and hope where traditional religion might have left a vacuum for some.
So it's interpreted as an ideology, not a purely scientific theory.
Right. And Abel points out you can see these ideological elements clearly in the writings of key proponents of progress. People like Condorcet, envisioning infinite human perfectibility.
Hegel, Marx.
Hegel, with his grand view of history unfolding. Marx, with his inevitable progression to a communist utopia. Even Teilhard de Chardin later on, with his evolutionary consciousness idea.
They all had these grand, almost utopian visions.
They often included notions of unlimited perfectibility, the inevitability of progress, visionary projections of utopias. These ideas, while inspiring, often lack hard empirical grounding. They feel more like articles of faith or aspirational stories than scientific predictions based just on observed facts.
This makes me think, in our own lives, are we sometimes so eager for answers or a comforting story about the future that we grab onto new beliefs without really scrutinizing their foundations, without checking for biases?
That's exactly the kind of critical thinking this critique encourages. It's not about dismissing improvement or denying the benefits of science, but about examining the nature of the belief system itself.
Is it reasoned from evidence, or is it a comforting narrative fulfilling a need?
Recognizing that difference is vital for intellectual honesty, for understanding the forces shaping our collective hopes and choices. If it functions like an ideology, it needs the same scrutiny as any other belief system.
Okay, so if we accept that progress might be at least partly an ideology or heavily influenced by it, how do we even begin to measure it? How can we know if the human condition is actually improving overall, not just in specific tech areas?
That's the core practical and philosophical challenge Abel tackles next. A huge criticism is the lack of objective, universally agreed-upon standards for evaluating the improvement of the overall human condition.
Give a yardstick, right?
Fundamentally, to measure any change, especially progress, you need a clearly specified goal or a fixed, verifiable standard. Without that, how can you definitively say we're moving forward meaningfully collectively?
Makes sense for something like, say, golf with par.
Exactly.
Well,
Abel uses that example.
Yeah.
We know if we're progressing as golfers because par is an objective standard. We track our handicap.
Or aviation.
Right. Progress in aviation is clear because the goals, safety, speed, comfort, efficiency, provide measurable criteria. He mentions the Smithsonian exhibit vividly showing this, plane after plane getting better.
Technology, too. Iron plow versus wooden plow.
Clearly measurable efficiency gains. A computer versus an adding machine. In medicine, penicillin is objectively better than a witch doctor's incantation for bacterial infections. You see mortality rates drop.
So we readily agree on progress in these tangible, efficiency-focused areas.
Yes, because the goals are clear and the results are observable, measurable.
But this brings us back to the tricky part. What about the less quantifiable, more subjective areas of human life? This is where overall progress gets fuzzy.
Precisely where the difficulty explodes, and the claim of overall progress becomes really problematic. Abel highlights the profound lack of objective criteria in areas like art, religion, philosophy, literature.
Right. How would you measure that?
Can we objectively say Rodin sculptures are better than Phidias's from ancient Greece? Is Kant's philosophy an objective improvement on Plato's? Is one religion scientifically superior in truth or goodness?
Seems impossible to measure objectively.
Abel argues we simply lack universal, objective standards for beauty, goodness, or truth across cultures and times. These are subjective, deeply tied to context, values, interpretation. Universal progress here is incredibly hard, maybe impossible, to define objectively.
So if general goals for humanity, like happiness for all, are too vague, and subjective areas lack objective standards, does Abel offer any workable standard for mankind as a whole? Is there any way to measure holistic progress?
He does try to find one, acknowledging the pitfalls. He notes goals like happiness for all or universal harmony are noble ideals, but not specific enough to be metrics.
Too fuzzy.
Right. The closest he gets to a general goal with a workable standard is freedom from tension.
Freedom from tension. How does that work?
He suggests human striving is mainly about solving problems we face while pursuing satisfactions. Things like relaxation, success, security, health, recognition, basic human desires.
Okay.
Since many problems blocking these desires are shared by all humans, their elimination or reduction provides a measurable criterion. We can determine if mankind's condition has improved by counting the number of problems solved or significantly eased over time.
Ah, so progress is measured by problems removed.
That's his proposed workable standard.
And are there clear examples where we can see this kind of progress, where problems have been demonstrably eliminated?
Oh, certainly. There's lots of evidence for this kind of progress. We can list hundreds of problems that plagued humanity for ages that are now solved or preventable.
Like what?
The clearest is disease eradication or control, smallpox, polio, diphtheria, measles, and the direct result, the measurable increase in average human lifespan.
That's a big one.
Huge. Global life expectancy jumped from maybe 25 years in pre-modern times to over 70, around 72 in recent figures. That's a profound, quantifiable improvement, a massive reduction in suffering and early death. Hard to argue against that kind of progress.
That does seem like a very solid case. But then, what's this double-edged sword insight Abel brings in? It feels like there's always a but.
Absolutely crucial, yes.
Right.
And this is where Abel introduces a major caveat, almost echoing that nothing new under the sun feeling again. He points out that the evidence of problem solving is a double-edged sword.
How so?
Because while, yes, we've eliminated many problems and made real improvements, it's also true that some of our solutions have paradoxically created a whole flock of new problems.
Can you give an example?
The automobile is a classic one. Solved huge mobility problems for our ancestors, right? Reduced travel time, opened up possibilities.
Sure.
But it simultaneously introduced problems they never worried about. Widespread air pollution, crippling traffic jams, staggering numbers of road accidents, huge infrastructure costs.
One problem solved, several new ones created.
Exactly. Abel notes it's hard to think of anything we've done to improve our lot that hasn't produced some new concerns, some new tensions. It's often less about problem eradication and more about problem exchange.
That is a very sobering thought. Just trading one set of problems for another. A perpetual shifting of challenges, not real resolution. Does Abel give any more specific, maybe unsettling examples of these unforeseen consequences?
Yes, he even applies this double-edged sword thinking to the seemingly obvious good of increased life expectancy.
Really? How?
He mentions a scientific meeting where Professor Hornell Hart projected life expectancy could reach 150 to 300 years by 2100 due to medical advances.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
But Hart himself was reportedly glum about the potential effects. He worried, for instance, about marriage, how many people would want to stay with the same partner for 300 years.
Good question.
He thought about the psychological toll, generational succession issues, economic stagnation with an unchanging workforce, the sheer existential burden. It vividly shows how even solving fundamental biological problems can create entirely new, complex, human and societal challenges.
Challenges we might not even be ready for.
Exactly, challenges we might not grasp or know how to solve. So this raises that important question again. Are we truly progressing by solving problems or just exchanging challenges with potentially unforeseen consequences that might be just as bad or worse?
It pushes us to think about the ripple effects. And if our definition of betterment is really adequate.
Precisely.
It certainly feels plausible that the overall ratio of problems to solutions, or maybe just the overall intensity of life's tensions, stays relatively constant through history. This perspective feels very much like that ancient nothing new idea, doesn't it?
It absolutely echoes that sentiment.
Like we're on a treadmill running hard, but not really getting anywhere fundamentally new or achieving lasting peace.
That's a strong current in Abel's analysis.
Wow.
He argues the overall intensity of life's tensions doesn't seem to decrease, even if the form of the tension changes over time.
So the specific problems change, but the struggle remains.
He points out that many fundamental problems in human relations are essentially the same now as they were 5,000 years ago. Think about growing up, conflicts between generations, competition for status, romantic troubles, intergroup conflict, war.
The core human dramas.
Exactly. A Sumerian or ancient Egyptian dropped into today would be amazed by our tech, but they'd quickly recognize these perennial human problems. They aren't new challenges. They're deeply ingrained in the human condition.
Regardless of our technology or social structures, the packaging changes, but the core struggle remains.
That's the argument.
That's a rather bleak outlook, suggesting this inescapable cyclical struggle. Do major philosophers of history align with this kind of view? Humanity trapped in a cycle.
Many certainly do. This cyclical view has deep roots. Philosophers like Oswald Spengler, in The Decline of the West, argued civilizations are like organisms. They appear, grow, mature, and die, following predictable stages.
So our civilization is destined to decline.
According to Spengler, yes. To make way for the next one, which will follow the same path. Arnold Toynbee, Pitteram Sorokin, though with different models, held similar cyclical views.
And the implication.
The implication, which Abel says existentialists often agree with, is that mankind is caught in a squirrel cage.
Running faster and faster, but going nowhere.
Exactly, expending immense energy, developing incredible tech, complex societies, but ultimately going nowhere in terms of fundamentally changing the human condition or escaping these perennial tensions. It's a powerful, quite pessimistic interpretation.
So under this squirrel cage view, we're just running in place. Is there no alternative? Do we have to accept that progress is just a sheer myth and illusion, as Abel puts it?
Well, thankfully, Abel himself introduces a counter-argument. He calls it common sense. He admits that concluding progress is just a myth, a treadmill, runs counter to our intuition and lived experience. Even a casual look at the past shows significant, undeniable differences in the felicity of modes of human living.
Meaning the overall quality and ease of life.
Right. He points to the stark contrast between ancestors in caves fighting off animals, hand-to-mouth existence, exposed to elements versus modern life with its relative comfort, security, medicine, food abundance, complex societies.
We wouldn't trade places, generally speaking.
Definitely not. He argues something undeniably has happened, a qualitative shift, and we feel justified calling it an improvement.
That resonates. We feel life is better in many ways. So if progress isn't just problem elimination, and history isn't just a squirrel cage, what's Abel's alternative framework? How does he reconcile that common sense feeling with the persistence of problems?
Abel introduces a really useful alternative view. We could call it the plateau paradigm.
Plateau paradigm.
He suggests human development can be seen as a process lifting mankind from one plateau of existence to a fundamentally higher one. And crucially, mankind never drops back to a lower plateau once reached.
So we reach a new level and stay there. Irreversible shifts.
Yes, fundamental, irreversible shifts in the baseline conditions of living, establishing new, elevated starting points for the next generations.
But that's a much more hopeful image than a squirrel cage. Can you give specific examples of these transformative plateaus?
Absolutely. A clear, pivotal example is the Neolithic period, the discovery of taming animals and cultivating crops that led directly to settled life.
Which led to communities.
Right. Permanent communities, division of labor, specialized skills, trade, commerce. This whole package established a significantly higher plateau of civilized living than the nomadic, precarious hunter-gatherer existence before it. It fundamentally changed everything.
Okay, that's one huge leap. What about another?
Much later, another profound shift came with learning how to harness natural powers, electricity, the internal combustion engine. This lifted mankind to another, even higher plateau.
How so?
It enabled us to do things with machine power that only human and animal muscle could do before. Abel argues this dramatically expanded our capabilities, enabling the vast array of opportunities for civilized living we enjoy today, instant communication, material comfort, and so on.
And he even speculates about future plateaus, doesn't he, looking ahead?
He does. He looks ahead, speculating about a new plateau maybe forming right now, driven by fully harnessing atomic forces, perhaps.
Waiting to.
An era of maybe no scarcity, no drudgery, where basic material concerns could vanish as energy becomes cheap and abundant. He even wonders if mankind might undergo a spiritual regeneration then, freed from survival pressures.
That's quite optimistic.
It is. But the key fact underpinning this plateau paradigm is his observation that, despite all the ups and downs, mankind as a whole has never dropped back from a reached plateau to a lower one already transcended. That represents genuine, lasting, irreversible change in our fundamental conditions.
This paradigm really helps reconcile things. We can see the persistent human problems, the squirrel cage aspect maybe happens on each plateau, but acknowledge genuine advancements that lift us to higher plateaus with more capabilities.
Exactly. It's like seeing the same fundamental challenges, but from a progressively higher, more capable vantage point.
What stands out to you about these contrasting views, the squirrel cage versus the ascending plateaus? Especially that idea of never dropping back.
I think the plateau paradigm allows us to hold both truths. Yes, fundamental human challenges endure conflict, loss, the search for meaning, but our capacity to address them, the resources available, the overall conditions, have indeed been irrevocably elevated.
So the focus shifts.
It shifts from an idealized, problem-free utopia, which seems unlikely, to a more realistic understanding of cumulative human achievement that fundamentally changes the playing field of life.
It emphasizes accumulating capabilities, knowledge, systems.
That provide a higher baseline for everyone that follows, rather than focusing only on whether we've eradicated all challenges. The problems might feel constant, but our ability to engage with them, the sheer number of options we have, has profoundly changed.
Okay, so if progress isn't simply achieving utopia or just eliminating specific problems, what then is the real refined meaning of progress according to Abel's deeper analysis? He seems to be building towards something more subtle.
He is indeed, and this is where his ultimate argument really comes into focus. Abel contends that the betterment implied by progress refers not so much to the value of what we achieve, the specific outcomes, cultural products, which can be subjective or temporary, but rather to the conditions which make achievement possible. This is a crucial distinction. It's not just what we create or solve, but how we are enabled to do it. The resources, the opportunities, the possibilities continually open up.
So it's about potential and opportunity, not just results. How does he connect this to human nature itself?
Abel emphasizes humanity's unique capacity to achieve, to be creative, shape things, search for understanding, express ideas through symbols and art. He calls this the unique feature of man.
Our creative spark.
Yes, and he says the potentiality of man's creative capacities is uncharted, suggesting unlimited possibilities yet to be realized. This inherent drive to create, explore, understand is constant. Progress, then, is about nurturing the environment where that drive can flourish.
So achievements aren't automatic. They require effort from us and something from our environment.
Exactly. Achievements require persistent effort, venturing beyond existing frontiers, taking risks. But most importantly, they require the presence of favorable conditions.
Right.
These conditions are what allow human potential to be realized. Without them, without tools, knowledge, freedom, support, potential might just lie dormant. Progress stagnates.
That makes perfect sense. Can you elaborate more on what Abel means by these favorable conditions? What are their key elements?
Favorable conditions, in Abel's view, are those that expand and multiply, offering three key things. First, a wider range of choice. More options for how to live, careers, ideas, goods, services, increasing human agency.
More choices. What else?
Second, ready availability of what can be chosen. It's not just having choices in theory, but having them actually accessible, like widespread literacy making education available to more people than ever before.
So choice plus access. And third,
free access to what we need and want. Minimizing arbitrary or systemic barriers to acquiring those available choices, whether it's healthcare, information, opportunities for self-improvement.
choice, availability, access.
It's because conditions like these expand and multiply over time, Abel argues, that we can speak of the steady improvement of the human condition. It's an expansion of our collective capacity to act, choose, create.
Fostering a richer, more diverse human experience. So true progress in this view isn't reaching a perfect end state, but continuously improving the environment for human striving and creativity.
Precisely.
What's Abel's ultimate, maybe provocative answer then? Is progress real, given all this complexity?
Well, while he advocates strongly for progress defined this way, focusing on the conditions for achievement, he doesn't claim it as an incontrovertible fact, not an absolute certainty.
So what's his final word?
His ultimate provocative answer to, is progress real, is simply, why not?
Why not? Not a statement, but a question, an invitation.
Exactly, an invitation, a challenge to human ingenuity and will. He underscores this by referencing that famous quote often associated with President Kennedy, but from George Bernard Shaw. Other peoples see things and say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not?
Emphasizing hope, imagination.
Yes. The need for hope, confidence, imagination to tackle world problems, rather than being limited by the horizons of skeptics or cynics who only see obstacles. It's a call to embrace possibility, actively build those favorable conditions, nurture that why not spirit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Abel suggests true progress isn't a fixed destination or just a solved problem list, but a continuous, dynamic expansion of human potential itself. It's about consciously improving the conditions that let us strive, create, explore beyond known frontiers, empowering that fundamental human capacity to ask, why not? And then build the world that makes the answer possible. Today, we've taken quite a deep dive into this fascinating tension, haven't we, between nothing new under the sun and the modern quest for progress.
We really have.
We've explored how a simple biblical phrase can hold profound theological meaning when we see its context pointing beyond the sun.
Right, that crucial restrictive phrase.
And we've grappled with how progress, which seems straightforward, is actually packed with philosophical and practical complexities. Theodore Abel really pushed us to a more nuanced understanding of what human advancement might mean.
From cycles of tedium to ascending plateaus of possibility, it's clear there's no single easy answer about where humanity is truly headed. It's a rich tapestry of perspectives.
It really is.
Which brings to mind, perhaps, a final question for reflection. Maybe the true newness isn't found just in things looking outwardly different, or in solving every old problem. Maybe it's in how we choose to engage with the cycles of challenges and opportunity.
Yeah, we engage.
Yeah. Whether that's by seeking purpose beyond the mundane, under-the-sun repetitions like Ecclesiastes hints at, or by continuously working to expand the conditions for human creativity and choice, as Abel suggests. So the question for you, the listener, is, what does progress mean to you in your own life, especially when you face those seemingly repetitive challenges or when you think about those unlimited possibilities yet to be realized?
That's a great question to ponder. We hope this deep dive has given you some aha moments and valuable new perspectives, maybe challenging some assumptions about history and destiny.
Hopefully spark some thinking.
If you enjoyed this in-depth exploration, please consider subscribing to VSOW. Like this deep dive if you found it valuable, and definitely leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on progress, on nothing new under the sun, or any other insights you've gained.
We really do value your engagement and enjoy hearing from you.
Thank you for listening to VSOW.